Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our session today. We're discussing with three very talented women the future of Pakistan's creatives from film, fashion, and music. To introduce our guests is Charlena Hussain Morgan from the U.S. Consulate. Please go ahead, Charlena.
Hi. Can everyone hear? How do we turn this on? Are these on? Yes, it's on. Hello? Okay. Hi, assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Charlena Hussain Morgan. I'm very glad to be here today as the moderator for this, what will be a very exciting panel. I'm the spokesperson for the U.S. Consulate here in Karachi, and I've had a fantastic time meeting different members of the art and cultural community, and so I'm so glad to be introducing what I think is a fantastic panel, a very unique all-female panel to give a very interesting perspective on the film, fashion, and music industry in Pakistan, where it's been in the past, where it is now, and where it could be in 10 to 15 years. So I just want to introduce this amazing panel here today. We're so honored and excited. I'll start out to my immediate left, Zeb Bangash, who's a Pakistani singer and songwriter. And many of you probably have seen her already in so many other musical albums and performances. She was also on Coke Studio. But apart from her solo career, she was also a member of the music group Zeb and Hania, which she had started with her cousin, Hania Aslam. So they released their debut album back in 2008, so that was almost 9 years ago. And since then, she also had her own solo career and has traveled all over the world and actually has performed many times in the United States. So that's our brief bio for Zeb, and we look forward to her intro in a minute. Next to Zeb is Maheen Kareem, many of you know as the famous Karachi-based fashion designer. She's a graduate of Central St. Martin's College of Art and Design, and she's also worked for globally acclaimed fashion houses in the West. She returned to Pakistan in 2006 to start her own label, and since then she has been known to create this famous, beautiful, ready-to-wear label that is the first to specialize in women's Western-style evening wear. And since then, she's been the recipient of the prestigious Lux Style Award for her achievements in designing. And last but certainly not least, Mansha Pasha, as many of you know, is a famous Pakistani actress and television presenter. She's known for her many roles, including in Zindagi Gulzar Hai, Madiha Maliha, Shehrazad, Virasat, and Mere Naam Yusuf Hai. So she's very famous, has been in the industry for so many years, and as you know, she also received the Hum Award for Best Supporting Actress. So I'll leave that to be their short bios. And I want to start out by having a conversation with each of our panelists today, and I'll start out kind of, next to me, so I'll start out with Zeb first. Zeb, when you first started out in the industry, what was your experience like?
So for me, my first kind of interaction with the industry was through Zeb and Hania. And that was also a bit of an accident, really, an accident of fate, because Hania and I were in college in the US, and we ended up making these demos just for fun and because we had nowhere to go during Thanksgiving break, and because we thought that it would be funny to make a song. And the two of us made a song, uploaded it on the internet, and lo and behold, when we came back in the summers, the breakfast show on FM 89 was playing it every single day, one of our songs. And from there, we just started kind of harnessing a bit of a support from our fans and fellow members. And by the time that the next year came around, we already had people sending us our own songs, telling us that there are these two girls that you must listen to. And this kind of happened, and then we ended up making more songs. We got more encouragement. The media, especially in those days, was very keen on noticing and promoting independent songs on the radio. Anything that was Pakistani was also being really promoted by channels like Indus Music. And the indie Pakistani pop scene was really flourishing. So in that sense, I think we came towards the end of what was the golden period of independent music in Pakistan. And we got signed up by a big label associated with, a huge media house. Unfortunately, as soon as we came we signed up our album, things became supremely corporatized, and the Bollywood kind of hegemony took over Pakistani channels. And somehow Pakistani independent music became less and less, seen and prevalent on our channels, and the radio channels started playing it less. And also, so it was the Indian content that became a lot more preferable. So, I mean, we went from this strange euphoric kind of, boost when we weren't really thinking about it. When we were interested, I was doing, finance and entrepreneurship, and Hania was an anthropologist, and we were kind of going about our business, and suddenly, we get this boost, and we think, okay, let's go do this. And we did it, and then there was a big slump.
And the industry changed.
And the industry and it was pretty much over, I think within a month and a half, the dynamics of it completely changed, because, Indus Music also closed up, and everywhere you'd basically just see Indian content, and we'd be calling the same people to put our videos up. We'd invested in videos. Obviously, it's a very expensive proposition, so we used to invest in our videos, but nobody would play them because, we were competing with the big wigs at that time, without any marketing support. So that happened, and then another turning point happened, which was the Coke Studio platform. And on the second season of Coke Studio, Rohail Hayat, who was then the producer of the show, got in touch with us. He'd heard our album and he liked it. And I'd say I'm very lucky that I actually got a call from him to come and feature on the show. But by that time, Hania and I were pretty despondent, and we just said, okay, fine, we'll do it.
You weren't really feeling encouraged.
I was feeling very excited to actually work with Rohail, who has obviously been a part of one of the largest, success stories of Pakistani music, which is Vital Signs. So we were happy about the opportunity, but I wasn't encouraged that it would go anywhere. Because you see, music cannot really flourish if you don't have, in a market sense, if you don't have the right marketing behind it, the marketing dollars behind it. And that had been our experience the past year and a half that we had been interacting in the industry. So when we finally, said yes to the project, we were happy that, okay, it was a good, well-paying project. It was fun musically, but really I had no expectations of it as such. To the point that when it was released in July, we were performing at the Turkish embassy in Islamabad, and then instead of heading back home, my band and I decided, why don't we go up to the hills in Natya Gali? And so we were up, and then we went there, and it started raining and hailing, so there were no telephone connections. There was, we were completely cut off for a whole week, 10 days, having our little holiday, going for, playing cards and hanging out, making music. And when we come back to Lahore, and I switched my phone on, I mean, suddenly I had
you had blown up.
Yeah, it was crazy. So it was kind of that, and it was unbelievable for me, because it was another one of those unexpected, moments. So Coke Studio, I think, was really a defining moment also, along with the advent of the internet and the way the internet has played a big part. Post that, I think, of course, we rode the wave of that for a couple of years, went to India. And again, that's a very interesting story, because I went to India not knowing anyone except a friend of a friend's fiancé. And so when I went I remember in Bandra, which is, kind of a hip neighborhood, suburb of Bombay, we went at night to meet the friend of the friend's fiancé. He said, listen, I really can't help you in any way, but I can spend this night with you guys and just let you know about Bombay and help you, hang out here or something. I said, that's fine. And on the way to the washroom there, I met this woman who recognized me, and she said, oh, are you Zeib from Zeib and Hania? And then by the time we left that restaurant, we had around 50 contacts.
That's amazing.
And it was very kind of encouraging and interesting to see how we're unaware of how much of an impact our industry was making across the border, and also in Afghanistan when I went later on. And I mean, so again, this idea, one thing I realized was that, the market in Pakistan, or maybe market choices, or the way content is being chosen, is not necessarily reflective of what will or what will not work.
Yeah.
Not only at a national level, but even at an international level, because a lot of the stuff that we did in Coke Studio was not in any sense very mainstream. The musical choices that we made were not the kind of choices that mainstream musicians would make, or if you had to try and create a hit, you would make. But they were having that resonance not only nationally but also internationally, and even the languages were that I was singing in were what most people did not understand. So after that, I think I became very interested to see what it was that was being ignored in our industry. And I also saw that a lot of people were kind of really, all of my peers, they were getting very caught up in, do a song like this, it'll really work. Let's do a Bhangra song, it'll really work. Let's do a Bhangra song with EDM.
What will make a hit?
What will make a hit? And I understand that also, because there's so much pressure, and especially because there's not much government support, there's not much, and then with the absence of real quotas for Pakistani content, we were in tough times. And outside of Coke Studio, we really don't have a platform where you can say, okay, if I do this, at least my song will be heard. It may or may not be a hit. So the desperation has been there for quite a few years. Also, because of the security concerns, a lot of the performances had been kind of cut
Cancelled,
down.
yeah.
Completely. So in that environment, there were two things that I could do. Either try and play safe, or just kind of reject it all, and I went for the latter. So I basically decided to find spaces that were ignored, and it's interesting because that in itself opened such a magical world for me, because the spaces that were ignored were somehow the most vibrant. They were the most historically rich, and they were also the real connectors, I felt, because what our traditional music, since we are such an old and we are the land of ancient civilizations, some of the most ancient civilizations in the world, and this particular land that today we call Pakistan has been a kind of a
fusion of all different kinds of cultures and languages.
And that is reflected, and it's been encoded in our musical traditions. And our musical traditions are not at all, it's not random. These are all very beautifully formulated classical systems. Every region, whether it's Sindh or Balochistan or NWFP or wherever, they have their own system of rags. They have their own systems of notes, their own systems of poetry. So that's what kind of opened up that magical world.
And that's where you find yourself now.
And that's where I am right now. So
Great.
That's what's been going on.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to pivot to Maheen. Maheen, when you first started out in the industry, kind of give us some context. When did you find yourself kind of, as a beginner, and how has that been your experience since then?
So, like you just read out, I was educated in England and I worked there because I actually wanted to, university teaches you how to put a piece together, something that you like, but you've also got to learn how to sell it.
Yes.
And that's a huge part of the industry that designers or young students tend to not realize, because you can have a beautiful piece out there, but as long as people don't know about it, it's not going to sell. And at the end of the day, it's a business and you've got to earn. So I was very fortunate to come back to Pakistan at a time where fashion as an industry was picking up. It wasn't a backyard cottage industry anymore. And I was very, very fortunate to meet Zahir and Sherazad, who actually really encouraged me and really helped me. There's a lot of stories about how fashion is a very cliquey industry. It's a very political industry. And there are horror stories that people have, but I will say I was fortunate to not have had any of those horror stories. Yes, of course, every industry has its politics. Everyone has teams, and as long as you sort of lay low and concentrate on your work, I think that's what matters. And when I moved back in 2005, I started my label in 2006. I concentrated on my work, which was Western, which was a complete shock to the system in Pakistan. But luckily, media was picking up on fashion, and they concentrated on it. They put a lot of effort into helping build the industry. Fashion Weeks emerged, which was a huge platform for us new designers to showcase and be out there. Because at the end of the day, it is a business and it should be treated like a trade. So Fashion Week started, and we put our stuff out there. And even though I was doing purely Western, which is a very, very niche market in Pakistan, I feel that I personally got a lot of attention for it. Perhaps because of my training, perhaps because I was very, like Zaid said, a lot of people will tell you, oh, you know what, get into bridals, get into wedding wear, because that's where the money is. And I'm not going to deny that. That is where the money is. It's a huge industry. Again, lawn is one of our largest industries. However, I was trained in something that was my passion, and I wasn't going to give that up easily. So I stuck by it, and I just feel that it sort of has caught on, because the younger generation, I see some of them in the audience, have got the same passion. You know, they want to see innovation. They want to see silhouettes. They want to see, of course, along with embroidery. I'm not going to take away from the great couturiers. For example, Bantoka Azmi, the great. I mean, I myself got my bridal made by her, so I really I revere her. However, I think. Past the millennium, Pakistan's fashion industry grew, and there is enough space for all kinds now. And I feel everyone is encouraged. I myself am on the board of the Fashion Council, and I feel that there is more chances for everybody to showcase. There's a taste for everything, and now with social media, the word really gets out. With e-commerce, there's somebody sitting in a small town somewhere who goes online, orders their outfit, and pays for it by cash on delivery. So it's become a huge, huge industry, and I feel I'm fortunate to be a part of it in its growing phase, and I feel it's getting bigger and bigger. And my experience is that if you cut out the politics, which exists in every industry anyways. If you cut out the politics and you concentrate on what you're doing, there's really, really, I mean, you will reap the benefits. Within 3 years of working in the industry, even though I was doing purely Western, there was a very small amount of people who actually could relate. I was awarded the Lux Style Award. So I just feel that there is appreciation, and the industry is growing immensely. However, I do feel that as an industry, we need more support from the government. There are brilliant students out there who need investment to start off their labels. It's tough to go through it. I was fortunate, again, because my parents helped me out there. However, not everyone can. And in order to make a successful business, you need to put in that kind of investment. And I feel that as the industry is growing, of course, there's more and more awareness of the need for it. However, I feel that if we had more of it, younger designers who are creating brilliant work would actually be moving much faster and be moving across borders. Because I, again, within 2-3 years of working in Pakistan, was stocking in boutiques, Lebanese boutiques in the UAE, which I thought was a great way to start internationally. I feel that people now, with more and more competition, need to get their word out. And for that, I think marketing needs a lot of investment, production needs investment, the quality needs investment. And I think the more we have that, like for example, India has started to stock in high-end boutiques or multi-label shops all over the world. And I think Pakistan has equally great talent, if not better. I mean, I have a lot of friends in India coming across to buy our stuff, especially our lawn. They fill up their suitcases and take them. We have a lot of Indians visiting our exhibitions in Dubai. And there is, I mean, a huge appreciation for our work. So if we had the consistency in our fabrics, if we had some kind of aid from the government organizations, I'm sure the industry will grow further and further.
Excellent, thank you. Last but not least, Mancha.
Yeah.
Is it working?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, it's on. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we kind of done a cross section of music, fashion, where they started, and kind of how it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
So when you look back at when you first started and kind of give us a sense of like what year that, like around time frame, what that was, because it's fascinating to see how each of these industries have some overlapping but some very different challenges that they've experienced over the decades. So when you started out, what would you say some of the experiences you faced or challenges you faced and kind of how you've gotten to where you are today?
Well, basically, I started about 5 years ago, which I feel is it's a pretty good time for me to start. I haven't been around forever. I've basically, it's been a very interesting time because there's been so much interest in Pakistani television, Pakistani film at the point when I started.
Yeah.
A lot of people who've been around much longer than I have and have been in the industry for something like 15 years, 17 years, there's a certain amount of jadedness because they've seen the industry really go through its very high highs and very low lows, which I haven't seen. I have heard about them, I've read about them, but at the moment where I'm standing, there is a lot of positivity around where Pakistani film and Pakistani television is concerned. As you can see in the last couple of years, our Pakistani industry completely collapsed. The film industry collapsed. A huge amount of people who were working in film actually switched towards television. I have worked with film actors who used to, at one time, do films. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, Pakistanis tend to have a more positive relationship with television somehow, and we don't have a very healthy relationship with film, probably because there are so many factors that go into the film industry. There's a lot of social factors, political factors. There used to be what we call the entertainment tax that was levied on films, which was the reason why people stopped investing in cinemas. And where people have at least 1 or 2 televisions in their house, how many cinemas do we have in Pakistan? In the 1960s, we were making something like 80 to 100 films per year. Wow. And now, I think we can, even at this time, we can boast something like a maximum of 25. And that's actually much better than what it was in the 1990s or 2000. But at the same time, we had, at that time, 800 screens. Right now, we have 320. And our population has gone from 70 million to 200 million. So you can see that there's a huge gap. You can't watch films if there are no screens in Pakistan. And a lot of our cinema houses were converted into apartment buildings and shopping complexes. Lately, there's been an interest again. I've worked in a film this year, which is going to release. But at the same time, we saw that Indian films, which were banned for a very long time in Pakistan, they were again brought to cinemas, and again then last year we saw what happened. There's again that very controversial relationship that we have with film. And once the Indian films were banned, there was a huge decline in the footfall in cinemas. It's a very complicated relationship, and I think that I'm at a point where I'm witnessing it. We're at this crossroad where it can really, at this point, go either way, because again, the entertainment tax in Punjab, the Punjab government has again put an entertainment tax, which means that the ticket price, which is something like 600, will go up to something like 825, which again means that fewer people will want to watch films. It's easier. It's more, television is more accessible. So again, like I said, I think Maheen also said, for this industry to really flourish and to really gain a foothold, we need encouragement. We need the government to take a certain amount of interest. It's easier to say that we can survive on our own. we can survive on our own. We should be able to survive on our own. We have the talent, we have the drive, but we need encouragement from people. We need the government to take an interest. We need subsidies, not taxes. And I think that's what I say. I think that I feel that I'm at a very interesting moment where I'm standing and it's like looking through a window and I can see where I'm trying to figure out myself where it's going to go. And obviously I'm hoping that it's going to, that this industry and what we call its rebirth is actually going to be a rebirth. It's not going to, there's not going to be another decline. Let's hope so.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to start with, thank you. We're going to start with a few questions from here and then, of course, open it up to, I'm sure, many questions that some people in the audience might have. And I'm going to pivot away from kind of some of the things you said, but there are so many other questions from what you guys have mentioned. My first question that kind of I've had prepared is, we're kind of in a unique and what I think is fantastic panel of all women. Can you maybe allude to challenges or surprises you faced as a female in your respective industries?
So the biggest surprise initially, again, was for as long as things were in the initial stage, it was the surprising thing was the amount of overwhelming support that I found from my seniors, and also I have to say the media specifically. I mean, I don't think that Hania and I would have been able to make an album. We had not done enough performances to warrant making an album with the premier producer in the country, and we had some of the best musicians in the country featuring on our tracks. And I think that was primarily because they saw two women who were talented and wanted to make music, and people like Mikal Hassan, Gambi, Shalim Xavier, Umran Momo, Manu. These are people who personally heard us, Hania and I, on our guitar, and they said, "You have to do this. We are going to help you."
So you had encouragement, actually.
Not just encouragement. They actually brought in their very, they brought in the skills that they had, and they gave us those services on credit and for extremely, like you said, it was a subsidy that we received, just for being girls and for wanting to do music. So that was a big factor.
And how many women were in the music industry really flourishing at that time?
Not many, and not many who were actually singer-songwriters. So I mean, from the very beginning, I think what really I'd like to believe distinguished us at the time was that we wrote our own music and that we composed our own music. So there were singers, and of course we've always had very good female singers that have done very well, but there are very few that really composed and made their own music. And so that was what I think a lot of people also responded to, and especially within the industry, I got nothing but extreme support from it. And then when again, I told you, like when I met with the larger market of music, what was surprising was that none of that support, like we said, existed, and suddenly we were being pitted against
Each other.
Yeah, each other, and also against content that's coming from an industry that is hugely supported, not only by large marketing budgets, but also by the government, by their general national, I would say, strategy to reach out to the world. So that was a real shocker that that support just suddenly it just left us.
It disappeared.
It disappeared, and a lot of the same people who had been your strength, even they were helpless to
So it
really
evolved,
support you.
basically. You would say that in the beginning of your career, you received this kind of surprising support, but it kind of shifted over time.
It did, and also I was also really surprised at the narrative that everyone wanted to believe. So I mean, of course, my family is also we are ethnically Pathan. So my father's I've lived all over Pakistan, including Quetta and Karachi and Lahore, and so I consider myself an all-out Pakistani. But for people, it was also really interesting for me to see how the idea of ethnic and gender politics was on everyone's mind. And so people could not get over the fact that I was a woman, B, a Pashtun, like those were the conversations that I suddenly had to have. And I wasn't interested in those conversations because really they were irrelevant as far as I was concerned. I mean, it was my work, and it was the fact, and everyone really wanted to hear that story of the big, mean, boys club in the music industry that didn't let us. There was no fight, I have to say. I was like literally picked up and said, "Wow, you're good. Do this," and I don't feel less because of it. I feel a source of pride because of it, because to have caught their attention or their ears. So I mean that was also a bit of a surprise. I think and in that sense I started thinking about the politics of cultural expression and how people and how we are really like constructing and then disseminating certain ideas of each other to each other within the national narrative and stuff. So that was as a woman, I would say I was made to feel like a woman after I gained a bit of success.
You were reminded of your own gender,
right? And I was made to feel like I was some fighter, whereas I wasn't. I was just following my passion. That's it.
Well, that's fascinating. Maheen, when you think about fashion, and maybe this is a stereotype, not only I think in this part of the world, but I think around the world, is that, well, fashion is full of women. So surely women don't face any challenges in the fashion industry.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. So what do you say to that?
So to be honest, I initially when I moved to Pakistan, it was predominantly a female-oriented industry, and what is really good to see is that more and more boys have joined. And the world has such great, fabulous male designers, so why not Pakistan? They exist in India, they exist in China, Japan, why not Pakistan? And I'm really happy to see more and more boys get into it. I'm happy to see that their families have started to support it. It was an industry that parents didn't usually back when it came to women, let alone men. I remember sitting at a dinner table when I was just a couple of weeks before I was going off to St. Martin's, and my dad's friend told him that, why would you bother sending her to art school abroad? That's a waste of your money. I mean, it's okay if she wants to do business, but why art? So my father was like, I'm a textile man, and I'm ashamed that you would say that, because he is part of the textile industry.
So you had your father's support from the
both
beginning.
My parents, yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to see that more and more young boys are getting that support from their families, because, it doesn't make you effeminate. It's an art form. You could be a painter, you could be a designer, and I feel that like my parents have encouraged it, I feel that parents should encourage even their boys. The world's best designers are men. So as a woman, I have to say I haven't faced those hurdles. Even at the production level, I have to say that I find that my workers, my master saab and the karigars who work for me, who are much, much older than me, have always treated me with respect and treated me really well. And I haven't had, I'm grateful for this, but I haven't had a single bad experience with them. So no, it's predominantly women, and I'm happy that boys are coming in.
Well, that's an important point to note, because I think that we forget that sometimes when we are trying so hard to achieve women's equality, sometimes we still need to make sure that we're including everyone else in the industry, because as we, I think, alluded to already, all three of you, the industries respectively are evolving and changing, and so with that, you have to kind of keep a pulse of who is getting lost behind as it changes. Mm-hmm. So I think that's fascinating. Thanks, Maheen. So Mansha, when you think about film, I mean, I know you said 5 years ago when you first started in the industry, and I think it's really, you are uniquely, of the three of you, the newest, and I put that in quotation mark, the newest in your industry per se, but I don't call you as a new person in the industry. What would you say in the film industry? And I think it's interesting in Pakistan, I'm a huge, drama lover, Pakistani dramas. I don't feel necessarily as a viewer that there are any inequalities for women and men, but maybe from your experience from behind the scenes, have you seen anything that you would say you've experienced as a woman?
I think the biggest challenge for women, probably everywhere in the entertainment industry, is content, their roles. So we have your cookie cutter heroines, especially in Pakistani television. It's a woman is presented, so she has to be, she has to appease to a very large demographic. So you have your woman who's, silently bearing everything that happens to her, is a silent spectator to all the injustice that she has to face in her life, the really typical Pakistani heroine, which I find is boring for actors. It's very boring, and it's also plays into a very, it's a certain mindset that it plays into of what a woman is and what she represents. And again, of course, it spills over to men as well. Even for them, a lot of male actors I know feel like, television is such a woman's medium in that way, and film has actually, it's like television is in some ways the ground zero from where we are starting our film industry, because like I said, a lot of the earlier film actors moved towards TV, and now television actors, including myself, are moving towards film. So it's a really big back and forth, but what we don't realize is that television, the medium itself, scripts are written very differently than what's written for screen. Film scripts are completely different, but because of that spillover, a lot of people have seen films and I've heard them say, "Ye film to ek drama ki tarah hai," which is very. It's not good, because everywhere else in the world, these two very interesting mediums exist separately.
Yes.
So, as a woman, I technically feel that yes, because of the fact that television was the primary source of entertainment for a very long time, we have degenerated into a very typical form of entertainment, nothing very challenging. And of course, if it's not challenging for women, obviously, then later on it spills over. There are not many roles for men. It's a lot of the same thing being regurgitated over and over, which is obviously something I hope will change.
No, that's fascinating, because I think that, all of you kind of touched upon an issue that, if I have a little bit of time before we open it up to questions, is the balance and challenge of making money and keeping the art form interesting / pure / relevant to what your passion is. So I think we have a few more minutes before we open up to everybody else, but when you look forward and you think about Pakistan in your respective sector, film, fashion, music, and you think about what would you say if you could be the ultimate decision maker in your respective field? How could you, and I think we talked about it, subsidies, et cetera, but how could you solve or make it a little bit more equitable in this balance of making money versus creating keeping the art form pure? What would you say in film, or music?
Oh, that's like that's always the biggest question, anything creative, when you decide to sell it. But for me, I would say that if I was a very rich and powerful person, so a few years away from that, no. So what I would do is that I would really put money behind curating original content from this country at one end. So I would kind of do away with this culture of covers. I think over the past 5-6 years, unfortunately, Pakistani music industry has become an industry of covers. We pick up old songs and we make them, and we're making some very creative and original minds, and people do that. So that is a real burden, I think, on those people. So I would kind of allow for original voice to come through, and I would, at one level, and at another level, I would truly celebrate and bring our traditional practitioners, our traditional bands, these amazing Balochi bands that I've seen. I mean, these are people who've been working and playing together for close to 30, 40, 50 years together. They're so tight. I mean, I would basically put them out there on world music stages. I would let them compete with other bands of their caliber, and really give them and make that stuff cool, you know.
Nice.
So there's so at one level really bring the traditional musicians onto the international platform, and at another level, at a local platform, really nurture original content.
I love that. Excellent. Maheen. Oh, clearly others agree.
Okay, I know I keep bringing up the neighbors, but that's the closest in our
No, it's a relevant issue.
cultural. So I see the industry in India, and I see how it's developed, and I see how local designers over there are liaising with Western designers to a broader audience, to a huger market. And I feel that that is the way forward. I truly believe that Pakistan has the talent, but sadly I think it's been tainted by the stigma of a terrorist nation. So we lack the tourism within our country. We don't have people coming in to see our product. As much as people can, without the access to funds, take it abroad, as we do as little councils in Lahore and Karachi. We try and aid it as much as we can. However, ideally, I think for this industry to grow further, it has to be more accessible globally. And again, I mean, there are designers who cater to their national market, but then they do stuff that will work. I mean, you have to sort of adapt to what will work globally as well. And for this industry to grow, I think we need consistency in our fabrics, and we need the textiles to come on board with us. I mean, lawn is, like, for example, I said, a huge industry in Pakistan. And therefore, I feel that in order for it to grow, and in order for art form to grow, and not just be constrained to the shalwar kameez, I think we need to broaden our market. So ideally, that would be my number one thing to, you know, we need more and more people to come in. We need our product to get out.
Excellent. And Mansha?
Sharlina, could you just repeat the question?
Yeah,
again?
my question was, if you could be, like, if you were the primary decision maker to in your field, how would you solve the issue/balance between the desire to always make money and the effort to keep the industry pure/artistic?
I think where film is concerned at this point, it's too early to really be judging that it should be a purely art-based form. It has to be commercial. Because only if it's commercial will there be investment, will it get to a point where you can really concentrate on it being very artistic. Yes, ideally, I would want that we should stand on our own, separate from India, for example, because of the fact that if we have this, if we are being compared, which we obviously are in Pakistan as well and abroad because of, you know, a shared language. Because of that, we have to stand on our own. We have to develop, and we can see that where TV is concerned, that over the years we have been able to really, you know, stand apart, and that is what our strength is. So ideally, I would want that in the future for Pakistani film. I would want there to be a lot more cinemas here. I would like tickets to be a lot cheaper, so that regular people, you know, like, I mean, for high income families, obviously it's much easier to afford a 500 rupees ticket, a 600 rupees ticket. But for people who don't have that kind of money, they can't take their entire family to go and see a film. There should be films in Urdu for children. There should be at a ticket that's feasible, like 50 or less. They should be more like, there should be student discounts. You know, we see the strengths, everything's there. It happens abroad. We just have to follow it here. But we haven't gotten there yet. And we know everything that we need to do to make it happen. But we still haven't gotten there yet. So ideally, I would like to see in the next 5-10 years that change, that shift, that positivity towards this industry, which we right now don't have.
Oh, great. Yes, excellent. Okay, I think we are at perfect timing to open up questions from the audience. So I think there are some rovers with mics. So we're going to start, I guess, right here. This young gentleman on our left.
This is a question for Zeb for the music industry. Do you ever regret joining Coke Studio, despite it helping you for your future?
That's
Excellent question from I think one of our youngest audience members. Thank you very much. I don't think I was expecting that. That was excellent.
yeah, that's really put me on the spot. Thanks a lot.
Zeb, we all want to know.
No, I don't regret it at all. And I think it was a very, very positive thing for me, because I think as a musician, what you really want at the end of the day is to have people listen to you, and to create some kind of a relationship with the audience, and because it's been one of the biggest platforms that has connected me to people far and wide. I wouldn't say I don't regret it in the least.
Okay, we have the mic right here. Yes, please.
Thank you. My question is directed to Mancha. You mentioned that you felt that at this stage in our cinema life, we cannot afford to have a blend of art and commercialism, and that you think that it's more important for it to sell commercially. I beg to disagree, and I also feel that maybe some amount of commercialism there has to be some kind of a stop for it, because we've seen movies recently where we've had all kinds of blatant advertising also taking place, a bride having cornetto and the works and the stuff like that. And so where do you draw the line? I mean, you are sacrificing art completely for commercialism, and one can, sort of put into it that. Yeah.
Oh, I think this is a group question. Okay.
I would give you the example of the film Bol.
Yes.
So it did not have much of the commercialism, and still it worked in Pakistan, it worked in India as well. And Mahesh Bhatt said, "Kash main aisi film bana sakta." So what do you say to that?
Okay. Is this on?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if I was able to communicate myself properly. I don't disagree with you at all. I've given that ice cream eating example before as well. I'm not a big proponent of heavy advertising in film. I know that it is it's very boring for people to watch, myself included. I think of myself as a viewer when I go to watch film, even if I am part of this industry. So that's why I said that there has to be good content, so that even if there is that commercial aspect in it, it is blended in a way that doesn't make it distasteful for people. And I'm definitely a proponent for the fact that there should be. Bol is a great example of a very good, a movie with very good content that had very little advertising right now. So I do agree with you. On the other hand, there's always this, little discussion that we're having in our own industry, within our circles, of whether they should, if there should be just a certain kind of film, that it should just be art film. I used to be of that opinion that, it should be just to my taste. But I've come to realize that there can be films that don't appeal to me, that might not appeal to you, but there is a wider audience out there, and we have to cater to them. If we don't cater to them, how do we make an industry? There are different genres. I'm sure you might not like horror films. My mother hates horror films. But I like them sometimes, right? So there has to be that we have to create an industry, and that means everything has to exist. We have to be tolerant, even if we don't like it. A blend has to exist.
And I think just to add to that, I absolutely agree with you. And just to kind of add on the American component, not that the American film industry has reached some level of, that they're done with evolution, but that is, when we watch advertising in the United States, or like a music video, you're like, oh, of course, you're marketing that Coke bottle that's right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And so I think in the U.S., for example, this same question is relevant, because Hollywood, for example, is touted as the example all over the world. But how do they keep making money? And for example, how do kind of the industries like Sundance, that have films that is not for the average person to watch, but still continues because the rest of the industry is making money through some aspect of commercialism. So I think that is a very important question and a vigorous debate that needs to happen in every part of the film industry around the world. But I think what you're saying, Mancha, is perfect because, for example, I cannot handle scary films at all. My husband loves them.
Yeah.
But, for example, that doesn't mean I wouldn't want him to go and enjoy a scary movie. And so I think that is definitely a question that needs to be raised in Pakistan. And I think, as you talked about before, as you look into the future of the evolution of that industry, these are questions that do need to be raised and need to be tackled for it to actually have expanding success. I didn't want to jump on you, but I thought that was a very interesting point. Yes, wherever the mic is, yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is from Mancha again.
Sorry, you'll have to be a little louder.
Yeah, can you stand up, please, so we can see you?
I feel that, sorry.
Yes.
Hello. Pakistani dramas, I believe, have always been the core strength of Pakistan. Even the audiences worldwide have recognized our work a lot. Even there was a time when the audiences shifted to Star Plus and the main focus was Indian dramas. But it was our drama industry that brought the audience again. Yeah, but I feel now, I don't know whether you will agree or not, but I feel that the attention now has more focus towards the filmmaking. And we are not we are not producing the same type of work. We are not giving the same, I don't know whether you'll agree, but I feel that the quality of work has declined a lot. So my question is, why is that so?
Wait, hold on, Mancha, before you answer, I don't know if everyone heard her question, so I just want to repeat it. So her question was, when you look at the evolution of dramas in Pakistan, the industry was always very successful and has a lot of attention, but then you look at filmmaking, and now the attention is on filmmaking, but then in the process, the quality has declined. Her personally she felt that way. So do you agree with that sentiment?
I think that if you felt it, it probably might be true. We see a lot of, you see there's, if you're a director for television, obviously you want to keep growing, you want to keep doing better, you want to switch to a different medium, which means that you try out different techniques. As I mentioned earlier, making something for the cinema, for the screen, is very different from making it from TV. The medium is very different. We have 20 plus episodes to 2-hour film, which has to be very compact. So if you felt that, it's probably to do with the fact that a lot of very good actors have moved towards cinema and aren't working as much maybe in television. Some of the best writers are now writing more for film than they were for TV. So they're moving. I mean, if they were producing or writing 3-4 scripts, now they'll be per year for television. Now they'll be writing maybe 1 or 2. So obviously there is going to be that. Television might face that backlash of a new industry coming in, where a lot of the people from television are moving towards film. But I think again, it's probably just for a little while. Television will always be a very commercially viable medium. It's standing on its own, and where some people are leaving, it means new people join in, and there is that little cycle that always goes on. I mean, okay, maybe 1 year or 2 year there might be a little bit of like stagnation, but then we'll pick it up again, because television is that kind of medium. It's ongoing, so I don't think it's going to face anything lasting, like a lasting damage or effect. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. The mic right here.
Question towards Maheen. I just wanted to know your take on the Fashion Week culture, because primarily in the West, like Milan, Paris, New York, it is an avenue to bring together buyers and designers, and obviously for the general public to come see the shows too. So I just want to know the culture of fashion weeks in Pakistan and how it actually helps or facilitates buyers and designers, and for the general public to come see too, because from what I know, a lot of them are buy and invite only events. So how do you expose the art and of design to the mass audience?
Excellent.
Fashion weeks are part of a trade show. It's a glamorous trade show, and it's absolutely about the buying of the product and about the orders coming in. And that is why, as a designer, one presents their stuff on the runway. What technically happens in the West is that you present your stuff on the runway, and the next day you get a lot of buyers to come in and order according to their requirements. However, in Pakistan, sadly, like I said, we have a security problem, and we have a lot of buyers who are a bit nervous about coming into the country. We do have a lot of interest in our fashion weeks all over the world. I myself, being on the board of the council, have liaised with a lot of foreigners where we send out our pictures, where we send samples, where we are invited for shows in other cities, and the products are appreciated and bought. So I feel that it's a growing industry, and therefore the emergence of fashion weeks in Karachi and Lahore is a really, really good thing. It's really helping new talent because it forms a platform where not everyone can open up a boutique in a mall or on a fancy street. It gives everybody a chance to put their product out there, and now with social media there's global recognition, so I do believe that they really help. And similar to Paris or Milan or New York, the images are, the world is a tiny place now. The images are there online literally 5 seconds after you've shown. And you get, I myself on my Instagram, because I actually manage it on my own, know that I get hits from the US, UK, and you can actually go into your social media and check who's checking your stuff. So I think that's a great way of getting our word out there. We hope that we get more and more buyers. We do get Middle Eastern and Indian buyers to come to Pakistan, and we do end up with a lot of our product and a lot of our designers showcasing in their cities. We're hoping that we get more and more. We've had people from England, so we're hoping that it continues to grow.
Thank you. So where's the mic next?
I have a question for Mahin Kareem.
Yes.
All right, so hi. You mentioned that you've seen younger designers with brilliant ideas, right? So as part of the Fashion Council in Karachi, and there's another one in Lahore, and connecting it with the tech startup culture, which is quite warming up, do you think that there needs to be a culture for fashion startups where younger generation can actually come on board and maybe form the labels, and you can provide them with technical consultancy and the networking that they require and the mentorship that is required?
Absolutely, absolutely. We are actually already working on a mentoring program which is sponsored by Bank Al Falah, which promotes new graduates, and it is part of our Fashion Week. Again, as our 10-year anniversary as a council, we are also sponsoring students for their university, and if somebody needs to get funding just for 1 year or for the entire 4 years, we're happy to do that as a council. And then we also host a Millennial Fashion Week, which is new designers. We help them, we mentor them, we help them put their product together, because not everybody has a workshop and not everybody can afford. It's a huge amount of investment to even put one collection together. So yes, we provide that help, and we're hoping that more and more people will jump on board and help us help these younger people, because there is fantastic talent out there.
Wherever the mic is, I can't tell. Point at the person. Oh, right there. Go ahead. Behind you.
I have a question for Mansha. There's a big difference between drama and a film.
Yeah.
Okay? So here's the thing. Nowadays seems like directors or producers just make a film, but it look alike a lot, like a drama.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion about it?
That's something I mentioned in my discussion, that that is something that we have faced because of the fact that there was a time where there was an entire film industry that existed, where there were composers for film, there were writers for film, and this was before the pre-VCR era. all of this existed. And these two mediums are very, very different. After the 1970s and 80s, because of taxes, because of a lot of censorship laws, and many other reasons, there was conservatism in the country. Our film industry faced a collapse. We are talking about something that used to exist and didn't exist anymore. And people moved towards television and foreign content, which we used to watch on our VCR. Now we are slowly and gradually moving towards film again in the last, after 2007, when some of the laws were relaxed. We've started since then. 2013 was a very good year for films. A lot of our very high grossing films were released in 2013, 2014. And now we see a lot of people from television moving towards film, which is probably the reason why you are experiencing what a lot of people have experienced, that films are like a drama. And you are exposed to that, to a lot of television, as we all are, which is why we see that in film, that we can see that similarity. But aista we'll get there. Slowly and gradually we will understand that this is a very different medium, and slowly and gradually it will be tackled differently, I hope, but it will take a little bit of time for that to happen. But we're going to get there. You can watch my film this year.
I know we're short on time, so gentleman with the mic has the last question.
Hi, my question's for Mansha again. And basically in 1985, right here.
Oh, there you are.
In 1985, we had somebody like Zara in Tanhaiya, and she wasn't very educated, but she was trying to get back her parents' house, and she manages to make an enterprise, and she gets it back. And 30 years later, we have somebody like the girl in Bin Roy, and her entire life revolves around getting a man. So why do you think we've regressed as a nation with regards to portrayal of women in dramas?
That's such a good question.
Thank you. Last but very much not least, excellent question. Thank you.
Again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about women and our role. And I mean, I think there's a certain amount of maybe introspection that we need as a society. Why have we regressed? Why do we look at women as just objects whose entire aim in life is to get the man or to get married? And why is this acceptable? It's not natural. To me, it doesn't feel like a very natural way for a human being to exist, because my life or somebody's life, your life, is not going to stop at marriage. Uske baad bhi to ek puri kahani hoti hai na zindagi ki. So what are your aims? If all your aim stops there, what about what happens after you get married? No matter what age, do you stop living? So, I mean, yes, we need that. It's all right to want to get married. It's all right to want to fall in love. It's natural. But there is more. This is one piece of a huge puzzle. And there need to be stories, because, yes, people get bored. I get bored. We need to talk about women and men who have more to do in their life than just this one thing, right? Yeah.
Any last questions for Zeb? One last question. Oh, wait. Oh, Zeb wants to add. Please.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's also really close to my heart, because I love Tanhaiya. And, and also, I mean, I've thought a lot about that also, because that was supposedly the worst time for creative expression, because that was the time when Ziaul Haq was, we were under the dictatorship of Ziaul. There was extreme censorship. We had just one government channel in television. But you see such amazing work. I mean, whether it's comedy, whether it's music, whether it's dramas. And so, one also has to, like you said, self-reflect, because we're always talking about what will sell and what won't sell and what will go and what won't go. But the fact is that that was the most conservative time in Pakistan's history. And if at that time those particular stories and those characters sold like never before, I don't see why original content today and stories of real life Pakistani women and men, people who can actually do things and use their agency. I mean, everyone wants a feel-good experience when you're thinking about entertainment, and I'm very surprised at why we have very little of that in our content generally in this day and age. So,
and I
that's
think
my little comment.
that was amazing that we're kind of past the time. So thank you very much for everyone for listening and for your amazing questions.
Thank you.